Hey everyone, this is Quack No, and we have with us today Matthew Tones. So Matthew is heading out to Florida. Today is February 2nd. He's heading out to Florida next Friday, February 9th. Probably get there a few days before, but he has Ultraman Florida. So just wanted to catch up with Matthew, learn a little bit more about this event and some questions that folks
Hmm.
had on the process itself. So, welcome, Matthew.
All right, thanks for having me.
Awesome. So, let's start out. Can you tell me a bit about yourself and your background?
Yeah, I'm 43 years old, so 44 on the USAT. Um, I've been doing triathlon now for 4 years, and I think I'm 4 years in the club as well. I probably joined right at the start. When I started, was very unfit. I couldn't swim a length of the pool, couldn't run the length of myself, and I've just kind of built up from there.
That's been quite a journey, and I believe your very first triathlon was a 70.3. Is that
Yeah,
correct?
Eagle Man. So actually, the first I signed up for was Maryland full distance, and I changed and did Eagleman because the club suggested it's a good warm up for Maryland. So I was originally going to do a full distance first.
That's interesting. So it seems like you've always gravitated toward the longer course events, which explains why you signed up for something like Ultraman Florida.
Yeah,
So
it was
can
originally
you,
just going to be a one and done, and I kept going.
yeah, so that's interesting. What kept you going? So a lot of folks they get into triathlon, they want to do that Ironman event. It's like a bucket list for them. What kept you going?
I just like to do the difficult things. So if something feels kind of impossible or extremely difficult to do, from a sense of challenging myself, not so much from a pace perspective, then it's kind of appealing. So I didn't think I could do Ironman, so that was my first thing to check off. And once I did that, I thought, what's the next thing that's difficult to do besides Ironman? And this was kind of the next step.
So now you are signed up, you're trained up, ready to race Ultraman Florida. Can you tell us how you found out about Ultraman Florida and what motivated you to sign up for it as like your next race?
Yeah, so I think I'd done another guy in the club, Jared McCabe. We did two Ironmans in a week. He kind of challenged me to that, and I'd finished that and thought, okay, I need something different now. And I'd been playing around with this idea for a while, like what is bigger than Ironman? And so I found this Ultraman, and Mary Latza from the club and her husband Randy are quite involved in it, and I've been bugging Mary for like probably 2 years at least with questions, and I think she kind of just said, just sign up and get into it. So I did.
That's certainly just ripping the band-aid off and going right into it. So aside from the sheer distance, can you walk us through what Friday, Saturday, and Sunday entails, and then how that might be a bit different from a typical Ironman?
Yeah, so my thinking is I'm generally around a 12-hour Ironman finisher. So I break it down in that sense. You have a maximum of 12 hours per day to complete the tasks. So the first day is a 6.2 mile swim, which is 10 kilometers. I'm on the fly. I'm calculating from metric to empirical here, and then I think it's 91-kilometer bike ride. It's 140 kilometers. That's the first day. The second day is just a bike ride. It's 171 miles, which is 275 kilometers, and then the third day is a 52-mile run, which two marathons, 84 kilometers.
That's a lot of miles, man. What
Yeah,
and what are the other differences, right? So isn't there something around like a support crew and
well,
some other logistical
that,
differences
that,
there?
yeah, that's the huge difference that I came to realize, and massive props to Amy and Jimmy and Arvind, because if you sign up for an Ironman, you can just pack your bags and go and do it, but this absolutely requires a crew. you cannot do it. It's kind of a selfish endeavor of my own that I want to do it, but you need to find people that are prepared to donate their time to help you do that. With no crew, there's no race. So that's the massive difference, is finding 2 to 3 people prepared to give up so much time for your dream.
That's quite the crew too. So major props to Amy, Jimmy, and Arvin assisting with that. I'm curious, what's that training process like? What are some of the lessons you learned? Were there any specific sessions that stuck out for you as you finish up your taper?
Well, the main difference is basically the lower intensity volume. So it mimics I guess an Ironman much the same in that you have your big end of week. So for me, my end of week is Thursday, Fridays. I shunt everything back 2 days, so I have more free time on the weekend to spend with family. So you'd have your big ride or big run on the weekend, like you do with Ironman, except because this is a 3-day event, you have 3 big days. So generally for me, it was Wednesday was my big swim, Thursday was my big ride, and Friday was my big run. And the other days are just, the same sort of thing, high intensity sessions, basically just banking miles. But the main difference is tons and tons and tons of low intensity, super low intensity efforts on the bike and run.
Interesting. Aside from adding in all of that low intensity, was there anything else that you changed or modified, inserted for this type of training that you felt was impactful, such as any specific products, any new routines, habits?
Yeah, I think a big change was my swimming. I sucked at swimming forever, and my approach to Ironman, I don't recommend this, but I was just kind of, what do I have to do to get through this swim? Like, okay, this is the bare minimum. I'll do the bare minimum and get through my Ironman swim. Whereas this one, because of the distance, I thought, oh, I've got to kind of take this seriously. So I had to add in extra swim sessions. I swam a lot more. I think my volume increased from an average of about 5,000 yards to 15,000 yards a week. And ironically, in that time, I actually started to really enjoy swimming, and I really enjoy swimming now. Apart from that, it's not that much different. The other big difference that I had to get my head around, particularly on the bike, is you don't care too much about power. I was becoming obsessed with power stats. It's more just volume and just keep turning the legs over and over and over again, rather than caring what power output you have.
So, Matthew, I'm getting tired just hearing all of this, right? what what specific to you did you do for recovery, right? Because that is a ton of training, a ton of volume, right? A lot of this process is you train, you create a stimulus, and then your recovery creates the adaptation. So, what are some things you did to help with recovery, time management for sleep? I'm curious, like how you managed all of that so that you just didn't like wreck yourself through this process.
Yeah, I think my sleep has always been pretty good. And if I'm 100% honest, compared to, say, Ironman prep, I don't think I did organized recovery as much as I do for an Ironman, because sometimes I'd be, by the time you get to the pool, you ride your bike to the pool, you do it and shower and come back and do everything else. You're spending 10 or 12 hours a day training. And at the end of the day, I'm just too tired to sit down and roll and stretch. And so I'd often miss rolling and stretching sessions. But I never got injured once during this whole process, touch wood. But I came to realize that the most important things was food, and protein shakes. I took more and more protein shakes, so just basically a high protein diet. And I bought a lot of those V8 cans just to make sure I'm getting vegetables, fruit and vegetables. I'd eat fruit anyway for snacks. And as you say, sleep is super important. And I mean, the big game changer is, I think it was for my birthday or something, my wife got me one of those massage guns. I've never had one before, and that made a huge difference in my muscle recovery. Like, I was quite shocked at how effective those things are, and I highly recommend them.
You never know unless you try, right?
Yeah.
So we're about a week out. How are you feeling?
I mean, at the moment, I think I'm kind of down with the so-called taper flu. I just feel lousy. Like, I just hate tapers all the time, regardless of the event. But like, I did 10K, which I think is like 6.2 mile run this morning, and that was pretty easy. But I'm just kind of in this. Everything is packed. I'm leaving on Monday. I'm just kind of just, it's like waiting for a flight, I guess. You just want the thing to hurry up and get here so you can get things rolling.
Man, it seems like yesterday we were just like talking about this, right? So it's amazing when we do this type of race. I think like that first victory is just getting to the start line. So kudos to you getting through the
Thanks.
process, getting to the start line. When when we start, when you start next Friday, what are you envisioning as success each day through?
Well, I think generally when I approach these things, I always sit down at the very start and ask myself this question because I think it's important because if you can get too cocky and overconfident, and if you shift the goalpost too much, you can be disappointed and not reflect. So my first goal has always been to finish. Uh, and on top of that, my time is like I have time goals. So I think the swim is something like 3:30 to 3:45 for the swim, 3 hours 45. The bike is probably around 9.5 hours, and probably similar for the run. But the time goals are very distant secondary goals compared to the first one of finishing, because I think a lot of things can go wrong that are out of your control. Like I could slip on some gravel and roll my ankle at halfway point, and it could be race over. So I'm kind of just hoping to get through it first and foremost.
That's a good view of it, right? You want to make sure you're not psyching yourself out. What what other key lessons have you learned during this whole process that you feel other folks might find interesting?
Well, I think in our chats on Saturday and the rides when I can attend them, I was always skeptical of the super low intensity. I used a coach from Australia, and he had prescribed a ton of just really low heart rate. It was just at the start of the training was absurdly slow, and I couldn't buy into it 100%. But now that I've got to the end, I think that the advice I would give is find a training plan or a coach or whatever it is, a path. I like to see it as a path. If you start here and you get to the end, you will succeed. So the event is basically just a culmination of your training. If you've done the training, you'll do the event, but you need to buy into that training, and you need to be committed to it and believe in it. And I think if you can do that, whether that's sprint, Ironman, or whatever else, if you do the training and you believe in the training, I think you'll succeed in the event.
I wholeheartedly agree, and I think that's one thing as fellow multi-sport athletes look to get to that next level. It's really coming on board with a new training plan or a new coach, and just having an open mind, because I feel like a lot of folks have trained a certain way. They're used to very certain things, right? That's just human nature. And I really admire how you embraced it, because this was very, very different from how I saw you train for previous races or previous Ironmans. And I have to give you a lot of props, right? You took on this huge challenge. On top of that, you embraced an entirely new way of training. So
Yeah, thanks.
it
And I
sounds
mean, I've sorry, I was going to say I've come around completely. So I've got Lake Placid in July, and I actually want to incorporate a lot of this approach into my approach now for Placid. So I'm going to have a greater volume of lower intensity uh, as I prepare for that.
yeah, I was gonna say it sounds like you were gonna keep some elements of this moving forward too, so that'll be cool to see how you adapt this for Placid. Awesome. So tell us how we could follow along with your progress for Ultraman Florida.
Well, this year is the first time they're doing some sort of live tracking. I can post a link to it. I did play around with it before, but it looks like it still hasn't been kind of worked out properly. So there could be some teething problems, but I'm sure Amy and Jimmy and Arvind will post something as well, but I'll post the tracking, and I'll probably, if I'm not too tired, provide some update each day as well.
Awesome, awesome. We're super excited for you. I mean, it's anytime someone does something like this, especially over the course of a few days, it's just so like fascinating to follow along. So we certainly wish you the best of luck with this.
Oh,
And
thanks.
circling back to the beginning, um, as you mentioned how you came into the sport and all of that, what is one piece of advice that you would give someone looking to do their first multi-sport event?
Well, the one thing I always say, I've said many times, is tap into the resources of the club. Through Discord and just social events. You can there's a treasure trove of information out there. But the other thing I would add to that now is pick something, whatever your event is. If you're on the fence, sign up. Once you're signed up and committed, it gets the ball rolling. And I think people, this is, we're all big fans of like Goggins and everyone else, but I think people are capable of like 40 to 50% more than they think they're capable of. And once you get the sign up done and you know the path to get there, I think people will surprise themselves.
Awesome, awesome. I really appreciate the advice, and thanks for being so generous with your time, Matthew. I know a week out, there's probably